All right. So today you are joining me for discussing what I call the leadership funnel. And that basically is if you're interested in actually thinking about whether you are a nonprofit or a for-profit leader and you are a conservative, there are some fundamental things that we need to be able to do as both people who have to provide for our families and people who have to be accountable to the Lord when we get to heaven, right? So hopefully, first and foremost, you've actually had the fundamental thing taken care of. If you are a Christian conservative, that means that you have found Christ by faith and you have put your trust in Jesus Christ alone through faith in your salvation. And that means that the only way that we can actually know that we've been saved is by Christ's grace on our behalf, not by any dispensation of any institution, not by any priest, by Jesus Christ himself, by faith in him alone, repenting of our sins against him and confessing that Jesus Christ is Lord and he is able to save all who repent and trust in them, in him. So that is how you first make sure that your eternal destiny is secure, and then that way that you are able to then lead in a way that honors God in the way you have whatever responsibilities in your work and in your ministry. And so here's a concept that I want to help fellow Christian conservatives consider. What if there was a way for you to be able to make the kind of impact you need in order for you to, if you're a small business person, or if you want to earn money on the side, or if you want to do a ministry in whatever way that God is calling you to operate? What if there's a way for you to impact people using media? Using the ability that God has given you, literally the phone in your pocket, to be able to make money for him and make an impact that lasts not only for this world, but for eternity. And so I want to lead you through what I call the leadership funnel, and that is basically a step-by-step process of how to actually make this happen. So a lot of people don't actually know what even a funnel is. So a funnel is typically just like you can see here on the screen. You see that it's obviously like you pour a funnel into the gasoline in a tank, or if, of course, for cooking or whatever, that kind of thing. But for marketing or anything that involves content, sharing information, leadership is actually something we're considering as a way we're educating and informing people and helping them along in their journey of where God has them and where God's leading them, ultimately through your guidance, through your influence, through your involvement with them in their life. And so a leadership funnel looks something like this. And so you create some form of media for your ability to reach the people that God is calling you to reach, whether that you are a nonprofit leader or you are a for-profit leader. If you are looking to actually influence people, the goal today is digitally interacting with those people, digitally finding ways to connect, to fellowship, and to identify with them, and digitally be able to share how that you can actually be of help or service to them in some way, whether that's for what you can do for their soul or what you can do for them in their life, whether that's some sort of service you provide or a product. This is one of the core parts. The top part of the funnel is how we actually communicate. Almost think of a bullhorn, communicate to others, communicate out. But in order for us to communicate, we have to have a message. We have to have something that is deeper than what it is that we're just immediately talking about. We have to have that aligned. The things that God is calling us to spiritually and the practical things that God is calling us to in order to help them, whether that's for a business or whatever it is, we have to have a strategy. We have to have a mindset that's aligned and that we know exactly why we're communicating what we're communicating. And it's not just to get the end goal of, I need you to buy this product, or I need you to buy this service, or I need you to come to this event. It's what is the ultimate goal we're accomplishing? Why are we doing it? And then aligning with the way God has made you, the way God has brought you through this journey to the goals that he's calling you to communicate through your media. And so that's going to require these two things to build this funnel. This is the way that God has built us to operate, especially with the responsibilities that we now have. Anytime we have a blessing from God, we have the world's most powerful communication and influencing device in each one of our pockets. And so we are accountable to God for how we use it. And if we don't fully leverage it, when we have influence, when we are in a position of influence or leadership in a formal way or even in an informal way, God is calling us to use every tool that he has provided to us to be able to make a difference in the people we serve, in the lives, in the people we have connection with, in our families. And there is opportunity by leveraging digital media with a strategic mindset in place that helps actually move the needle in both provision and purpose that God is calling you to. And so we're going to start with explaining the media portion. If this sounds interesting to you, if you're intrigued, just keep listening, because there's a lot more here that meets the eye. So if you're not familiar with the process by which you're talking about media development, this is typically what you would see when you're explaining it from a business position. But it applies to any time you're trying to deliberately create content for people that helps actually move the needle in the direction you want them to go, some direction you want them, or action you want them to take. And so the first thing we typically have in a leadership media development funnel process, the top end of the funnel here, is we start with what's at the bottom. And that's the way we can actually start to build the foundation, or the mouthpiece, the thing that allows you to clearly communicate the vision that God has given you, or the services and opportunities God has given you, is making sure that you have a good website. A website allows you to have literally like a storefront, a digital storefront online. It is a one place that you own that allows you to put whatever you want to put on there, so that other people can come there anytime and be able to see or benefit from the things that you have to offer. And so one of the things that I make sure when I talk to people about building a website, it's not just a place for people just to find out who you are and how to contact you. That's very important, but it's also a place where you can drive people for long-term, larger forms of understanding of what you do and what you help, how you can help, and the offerings that you have. So I actually help people create a full menu offer, meaning the things that you help people with, FAQs, your specific questions that you have. I try to help people do video FAQs, because not everyone's familiar with that, but boy, are they powerful in helping people in a 1-minute video explain how you have come to know and how you have been able to help someone understand the basic things that God has either given you to serve, to sell, or to influence. And so then courses and resources are another great way that you can offer on your website. And I actually help build all of these things. Now, the whole funnel that we're going to be explaining, I actually help people build this so that you can actually achieve the leadership goals that God has given you in your work or in your nonprofit ministry that you serve. Funnel webinars are a great way of doing this. If you've never heard of a funnel webinar, you've probably already experienced one. You've clicked on something that it kind of appeals to you. It leads you back to a kind of a website. It's just real kind of simple website, and it drives you to either sign up for something or get a webinar so that you can actually know what this person is trying to communicate to you. Webinars are a really great way of helping move the needle, whether you want to sell something or whether you want to impact people. When you help people, you can give them an opportunity for you to get hyper specific in the problem you're going to help people solve with. And so this is one of the things that I'm helping build as a part of the new ministry that's actually a part of my church that I'm a part of, is building content that actually drives people to something that can help them. We're actually in the process of building a course on our website that will be available, and then also the ability to have hyper targeted problems and solutions that people have questions about theologically, practically. How do I raise my kids in a way that honors God? How do I make sure that I'm pursuing God in the way I'm supposed to? How do I get over these marital trials? These are the things that we can do as ministries. And then if you're doing this for a profession, you can have specific problems that your customer is struggling with that your product or service actually helps them with. And this is one of the great ways to build what's called a leadership media development in your funnel. Live streaming, like I'm doing right now, live streaming is another great way to be able to address customer concerns. You can have live demos, live podcasting. You can actually just kind of have a conversation like you would a Zoom call. You can do that entirely digitally, or you can have someone next to you on a call or together on this, sharing what you have a conversation with about a particular topic. Those specific things, when you're targeted to the things that God's calling you to talk about, can be extremely powerful. And live streaming is also very growing, not only popularity, but its impact, because the algorithms want people to stay on the platform for a long period of time and engage in a meaningful way. And live streaming is one of those ways that people do that. So definitely that would be something that I can help you with, that also would be an amazing opportunity for you to impact your workplace and the things that you do with your nonprofits. Social blogging is also part of this process. Now, social blogging is not new to the internet, but the way it's done in the 21st century is new, and not everyone is actually doing it in the way that best utilizes what the platforms like you to do. And so obviously Facebook, you can just go ahead and post a big block text as a blog. That's one way to do it. You can use formal blog sites that drive people away. Again, depending on if the social media you're using typically doesn't allow or like when you navigate away from the platform you're using. So you want to use what I call pain point experiences and detailed education that are native to the platform you're using. And so that allows you to talk to really important points that matter to your audience, that matter to the people, and help them actually in writing solve that problem. And it can link to other forms of media and link back to your website about how they can actually take action about the thing that you have given them to think about. And so that's a social blog experience. Long form social would be creating how-to videos and commentary videos that allow you to speak specifically on a topic that inform the people you want to reach, whether that's the people that you want to serve, who are the product or service you're offering to people, or the ministry that you're doing. How-to videos on social actually work well. Between 3 to 5 minutes are really impactful and powerful, depending on how well you use and how good you are at delivering the content, which then that's something that I can help you with in developing that skill and finding people, even if you have a team of people, finding people who's good at being able to explain things in a way that average people can understand. Those are going to be people you want to put on camera and help to be able to explain your product or service, or the ministry orientation that you're wanting to inform people on. And of course, short form social. And that's where anything that you can post on a regular basis, that's reels, quotes, or tips that are real short, that someone can consume between 15 to 30 to a minute long, are derivative works, typically from the longer things, or something specifically created so that it's nice and short. And so these are things that you can do to help build your influence. This is, again, like a bullhorn. It allows you to get hyper targeted, drive people back to your website, all of these things, short form media, long form, social blogging, live streaming, funnel webinars, all can drive people back to your website. That allows people to actually take action on the things God has called you to help people with. And so that is the top part of this leadership funnel. And that is really the way in which you can connect with people. But in order to really get good at that top part, we really have to start with a foundation. And so what we do typically when I help someone create a leadership funnel, create something that impacts people for what they do, I help people actually take a step back before we actually create the website, before we actually create and go live, before we go produce content for the internet, whether that's for an influencing purpose, whether that's for a leadership purpose, or something you're trying to sell people to. That is, you have to take a step back and ask yourself, what is the strategy I'm using? What are the foundations? Where am I going? Why am I saying what I'm saying? Is it connected to the values and virtues that make America both Christian and American again? That's what we want to know, because ultimately, is that the thing? Do we not want to make America great again? Do we not want to make America Christian again? Do we not want to make the way in which our businesses do business in a way that aligns to the way we used to do business before even the 1980s? And that's something core. We need to bring things all the way back to 1776 and the values and virtues that were a part of that culture. And in order to do that, we have to create culture, and that's what the media is, but we have to have that from the strategy. And so how we start to go through this leadership strategy is the framework you're using to help people understand why you're doing what you're doing, because people don't just buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that includes not just physically paying you money, but it includes the buy-in on whether or not you're persuading something to. Of course, if we're talking about Christians and Christianity, the core of that part is the story that God has told, not only in your life, but the story he's telling through all of life. And so we have to understand what God's story is. What is he actually teaching you? How has he taught you the things that he's taught you and brought you to this position where you are in a position of leadership? And how does that change you? What is the story God has led you through? And then another part of that is then figuring out how to map that out. This is a really great way to then take the truths, the gold that God has taught you, that you are investing in the lives of people, whether that's non-profit or for-profit, whether that's what you're trying to help people with your customers as a leader. What is the core things that God has taught you, and how has that really motivated you to do what you do? We're going to map that out, and I call that a storyscape map. Then we take an audience analysis. So the people that you actually want to serve, the people that God's prepared you to serve, find specifically those people are. Where do they show up online? What are their interests? What are their values? What are their deepest fears? What are their pain points? The things that matter to them. What are their struggle points? If you're trying to actually move the needle, whether that's through a service or a product, what's the things that they struggle with that maybe the thing that you offer them, whether that's the service, product, or the ministry that you're offering them, how does that help them, right? So you have to have an analysis of who the specific people are and build what we call an avatar, which is basically just a general idea, kind of a profile of the people you want to serve. And that way we know, as we think about deliberately creating content from a strategic position, why we're doing what we're doing, who are we targeting, keeping in mind the audience we're serving, that God's called us to serve. And then we try to make that message really, really clear. So clear and quick to be able to share your message. So we condense that into these core messages, the who, the what, and the why. And you need to be and the vision of what you're actually trying to accomplish with both the thing that you're trying to do, whether that's for a service or for a ministry or for a product, that what is specifically, how is your company set up? How is God had positioned you to make that impact and make that as clear one sentence statement as possible that also fits and really exemplifies the work that God is calling you to do. And so we have to get that very, very clear. And that's a process. That one takes a long time, but we would kickstart that process right away in actually getting this thing going. We are always improving our messaging in a way that makes it clear for the people we serve. That's a process throughout time. We get that started, and then we develop a full media strategy for leadership, the content that you're trying to develop, the methods to target and amplify your message. So these are the things that God has called you to do. Now, how are you going to practically accomplish that? Which platforms, how often, what ways, what kind of visuals, what gear you should use, all this type of thing. We're going to plan that out. And so then that's the bottom of the funnel, but that really is the foundation. Before you get to the media portion, you really need the strategy. And so if without the strategy, that's going to be a problem. You're going to end up in a difficult spot. So we want to build that whole strategy so that that's the foundation of everything God's called you to do. It's uber clear. It's written down. It's actually connected you to the reason why you get up every morning, and it makes you feel inspired to do exactly what God's called you to do, whether that's provide for the people in your workplace and in the opportunities God's given you, or also in the ministries he's called you to. And so then ultimately, that's what this process is. That's what I help people do. I help people build this leadership funnel that uses media to really move the needle, to impact people for Christ, and in a way that rebuilds America in a way that brings us back to our original intent for our country, which is biblical ordered liberty, a way that reflects biblical order in a way that God has intended for humanity to work, and in a way that pleases Him. And so that is the goal that I am ultimately helping people do. I would love to have a conversation to see how I can help you. What has God called you to? What is God impressing upon your heart? Has God been you have tugging at your heart? Look, I've given you these opportunities. Do not let them slip by. God, if God is calling you, if God's tugging on your heart, if God has been challenging you, if you've been hearing from others, you realize the state of the world, you realize that why you're going to work every day, there's got to be something more. There is. It means you got to get a strategy of what God's already doing in your life and have that as the goggles of when you go in and actually do the things God's called you to do. Then if you're in a position of leadership, you're in a position that actually makes a difference on what you're going to do for other people. So communicating what God's called you to, whether that's for your work or for your ministry, means that you have to have strategic development of the media, of the things that allow you to then communicate beyond just the immediate circle and people you have direct contact with every day. You're able to use the power that God has given us, just the immense blessings of an entire media suite, an entire Gutenberg press on steroids in your pocket that God has given you to make an impact so that it glorifies God and that it moves the needle to make America great and Christian again, and provides for the needs of your family and your workplace. This is what God has called me to do. I am glad that if you had an opportunity to listen to this, you've been able to spend some time with me. Reach out. I'd love to have a conversation. Thanks for your time today.